Bazaar.
Yes, संजय जी पहले तो थैंक यू सो मच फॉर टेकिंग योर टाइम आउट एंड डूइंग दिस फॉर अस। काफी टाइम से हमारी इच्छा थी आपके साथ एक पॉडकास्ट करें। हम पॉडकास्ट दयान बाजार में इसलिए करते हैं बिकॉज हमें एक तो बहुत बहुत ज्यादा स्ट्रांगली ऐसा लगता है कि टेक्सटाइल में रोल मॉडल्स नहीं है। एंड रोल मॉडल्स होना बहुत जरूरी है बिकॉज जो यंग ऑडियंस है, यंग जनरेशन है, अगर हम सोचते हैं कि टेक्सटाइल में यंग जनरेशन आए तो वो रोल मॉडल ही कैसा है जो उनको इंस्पायर करती है। एंड आपकी जो जर्नी रही है, हम भी चाह रहे हैं कि वो आपकी जर्नी लोगों के साथ शेयर करके थोड़ा लोगों को इंस्पायर करे, मोटिवेट करे एंड टेक्सटाइल्स ताकि उस वजह से ग्रो कर पाए। तो थैंक यू सो मच फॉर डूइंग दिस विद अस।
माय प्लेजर। बट आई थिंक सो टेक्सटाइल्स में रोल मॉडल कुछ ज्यादा है, इसलिए शायद कंफ्यूजन है रादर देन सेइंग रोल मॉडल है।
तो चलो सर, लेट्स स्टार्ट विद दैट। इफ यू कुड नेम अ फ्यू रोल मॉडल्स, आपके लिए कौन रोल मॉडल्स है टेक्सटाइल्स में?
देखिए, मेरे रोल मॉडल तो थोड़ा डिफिकल्ट है बिकॉज आई एम नॉट अ पर्सन हु builds role models or persons as mentors. I pick up the good things from different people, but I'll still name a few. One is SP Oswalji from Vardhman. Okay, to be successful is one thing, to have insights, understand the industry, the nitty-gritties is a different thing. He's a person who's always come across very strongly to me. Sanjay Lalbhai is another person from Arvind Mills who's seen a lot of up and downs, but has been able to filter and create a very strong role model for themselves. And in down south, of course, has a lot of role models themselves. Uh, I don't know personally, but KPR as a company is a great role model. LMW is a great role model. In fact, one of the few, very, very few, when it comes to the machinery segment. They've done an amazing job. And of course, it runs through generations. But Mr. Sanjay, who's the MD, is continuing to ensure the good work is done. Of course, then there are companies like Jockey, another fantastic role model. Again, not personally, So I think so. Actually, textiles is such a itna segmented industry hai. You have the cotton fiber, and the fiber side, one of the biggest companies who's grown and done well is Manjeet Cotton, who've done an amazing job to grow and consolidate their position. Of course, there are many, many more. We have Suresh Bhai Kotak, who is the father of the cotton industry. And actually, I think so. I'll be doing injustice by because I'm sure so anyone who else will बोलेंगे भाई मेरे को क्यों छोड़ दिया संजय ने. So these are just a few. There are many, many more, and in different segments of the industry. When it comes to domestic, in the value added, you have the home textiles companies like Wellspun, Indocount, who've done Trident, who've done a great job. In the garment exports, unfortunately, we don't have many who have really grown, but again, Shai Exports is a
Shahi has done a great work.
shining example. Of course, there are many other people who have done a great job, but not on the size and scale of what they have done. Fabric, there are many companies in fabric also doing all sorts of stuff. And as a cluster, I think so. Surat is the biggest role model for us. Surat, Tirupur, these are great role models when we look at a cluster, because role models are not just individuals, not just companies, they are also areas and regions also.
ये
So
सर बहुत अच्छी बात कही आपने। काफी रोल मॉडल्स है अक्रॉस वैल्यू चेन। व्हाट आई मेंट वाज कि ये उनकी सक्सेस स्टोरी उतनी हाईलाइटेड नहीं है। तो हम ये चाह रहे हैं कि ये पॉडकास्ट के जरिए हम उनकी सक्सेस स्टोरी जाने, उनकी जर्नी क्या रही वो जाने, क्या चैलेंजेस थे, उन्होंने अपनी कंपनी कैसे बनाई, उन्होंने एक्सपोर्ट कैसे बनाया। कि काफी टेक्सटाइल आज इंडिया की बात करें तो 85% अनऑर्गेनाइज्ड एसएमईज है, बहुत डिसेंट्रलाइज सेक्टर है। सबका इच्छा, सबका एक ड्रीम होता है एक बड़ी कंपनी बनाना, एक एक्सपोर्ट बेस खड़ा करना, बट लोगों को उतना पता नहीं है कि व्हाट इज द राइट वे टू डू दैट।
absolutely. Many of them who are in the B2B segment are, of course, lesser known, especially if they're in the export market. So in India, we don't hear more about them. But I'm sure अगर आप सिर्फ export awards देखेंगे Texprocil, SITPC की, I'm fine, you're going to find those hidden jewels there.
यस श्योर सर। तो शुरुआत करते हैं आपके साथ एक फन सेगमेंट से, रैपिड फायर। लेट्स कीप इट कैंडिड, लेट्स कीप इट रैपिड। सबसे पहला एक बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग सवाल है आपके लिए कि अगर सपोज आप, हाइपोथेटिकल सिचुएशन है, अगर आप सपोज टेक्सटाइल मिनिस्टर बनते हो इंडिया के, तो वो क्या चीजें जो आप बदलाव या कौन सा ऐसा बदलाव है जो आप लाना चाहेंगे?
पहले तो इसको हाइपोथेटिकल क्यों करते हो सकता है.
Oh, definitely, sir. We look forward to
But
it.
anyway, jokes apart, I have had the privilege of working very closely with textile ministers, policy makers. I think so. One big change which we need to do is, which I would immediately do, is create an advisory council of handpicked, unbiased people from different segments of the industry. I think so. Getting not the presidents of associations, etc., because they have a responsibility to always represent not their views but the views of the members. So people, probably past presidents, people who have the thinking cap, I would say we should have an advice to give. You can filter through because so much comes to the policy makers that I really don't envy their position, how they are able to filter, and ministers or the bureaucracy uh, in that are normally not able to have more than 2 years, 3 years in the industry. So their knowledge is very, very limited. So they need those people who they can rely. I'm not saying go by their advice, but at least bounce off things, see the finer picture, and able to decide. That's one better thing I'll do. Secondly, I think so, partly which has been done in the last few years, we need to work on to see how we get competitive on our fiber side. We need to work on the building blocks. Till a few years back, and I personally have fought very hard when I was city chairman to remove all the unshackle all the anti-dumping duties from the raw material base. That was polyester and viscose, but again, viscose is again coming back. Cotton has its own set of problems. We had a competitive advantage, we've lost it. So building the blocks from fiber onwards is very important, especially for a large country like India, if we really want to be internationally, globally competitive. I think so that's somewhere happens, then doesn't happen, it's not being done. And we don't have any clear, thought out textile policy, which has been always in draft stage for God knows how many years. So I hope it comes out. It has to be very comprehensive, very thought through, probably creating a broad contours for the next 10 years.
So both very strong points. In fact, your point number two is very interesting because I mean a lot of the conversations that I have with people in the industry, the usual thought is like you know rightly mentioned that you know your raw material or yarn is a building block for all textile materials. And fortunately or unfortunately, when it comes to fibers, there is kind of a monopoly in all segments, whether it's cotton or polyester or viscose. And maybe that I don't know. I mean,
Cotton does not have a monopoly, but it is too much controlled by policy. So, the other two are monopolized, and this is too much controlled by policy.
hmm. Sure, sir. And my second question is, if you could describe TT Textiles in 3 words. And I mean, I'm aware it's a large business, you know, global footprint, you are across the value chain, so it could be difficult. But if you could describe the company in 3 words, what would they be?
Well, I would just say, I'll repeat one word again and again 3 times: honesty, honesty, honesty.
Nice. I think that's a fantastic answer. Love that answer. And my third question is tea or coffee, what keeps you going throughout your busy day?
Nothing specific. I travel so much. I'm all across, so I've kept my preferences to the low point. So I'm never out of energy because of a lack of a cup of tea or coffee.
Oh, nice. But I would have expected, you know, someone coming from Calcutta would definitely say tea. I love tea. The tea
I
is
know.
very Calcutta.
Yeah. I do take my cup of tea in the day, but that's just one cup in the evening. Nothing hard and
Okay.
fast.
And
I've
so
tried,
what's the
had black tea when you go to Turkey. You have black coffee somewhere. Somewhere you have a normal tea. It all varies, depending. If you're in a small town like Bihar or UP, the small towns, then you're going to have a normal tea. You have to say that give less sugar. So it all varies all of it.
उधर ब्लैक टी बोल देंगे तो उन लोग आई थिंक चकरा जाएंगे फिर
हाँ, definitely.
बट इट्स ग्रेट बेसिकली वो जो बोलते हैं ना कहावत है जैसा देश वैसा भेष तो मतलब जिधर जाओ
Absolutely.
उधर के हो जाओ.
And I have been very privileged to have meetings in Empire State Building in New York, and I've also had I've done meetings in places like Motihari, Siwan, Azamgarh, Balia, where people would not like to even name them, forget visit them.
No, plus recently you were also part of the European Parliament. We'll do talk about it also. And my last rapid fire question to you is, sir, what's the best piece of advice that you've received in your career?
I'm sorry, I really can't recollect one piece of advice that I've received. But
Or
of course,
one piece of advice you would want to give to other textile companies?
I think so. Change is imminent, and whether we change or not, we are still going to be forced. Change will still happen. So, and today the mantra is not change. If you want to be successful, it's disruption.
Very well said, sir. And I think post-COVID, more people would have realized this than ever. Let's start with the main segment. Of course, you are a very well-known, person in the textile community and even otherwise. But just for our listeners, it'll be great if you could share, your journey. So what we want to know is, who is Mr. Sanjay Jain? What has been his journey? How did you come to textiles? Whether it's your company or the other, roles you play with, you're very involved in the other activities apart from your company, whether it's other organization as a chairman or in different roles. So we want to just uncover and understand more of who Mr. Sanjay Jain is.
That's a long list, but anyway, I'll try to keep it as brief as possible. Uh, I'm from a commerce background, and I've always been blessed to be among the toppers. So I've done my BCom, cost accountancy, company secretaryship, and then I went on to do my dream, go to my dream institute, which was there from class 8, was to go to IIM Ahmedabad, and I was the first commerce grad. It was a place with engineers, commerce grad who managed to top IIM Ahmedabad. So being a double gold medalist from IIM Ahmedabad was a great
Oh, wow.
thing.
And which year was that, sir?
93, I passed out. Now I'm a veteran. We
I
just now
was born
celebrated.
in 90.
We just now celebrated our 30th reunion. So that's why they say the world is round. And I went into finance because that was a very natural thing, being from a commerce background. I was working in ICICI Securities, JV of JP Morgan and ICICI, and I managed to get my hand on see a few textile companies there. I managed a few IPO issues. I also Arvind was my client among the larger companies, and those were the days you were from Yarn Bazaar. That was when the yarn boom started in India, when EOUs came up, and I also managed about 3, 4 of the public issues. Unfortunately, only one of them is there going strong. The others have all withered away or been sold out. Then in 97, I got an opportunity to join TT Limited, which was in the family. I'm not the first generation entrepreneur, I'm a second generation entrepreneur. Of course, we've grown a lot from there. TT essentially started as being a men's innerwear brand, and it has a lot of firsts to its name. It was the first knitwear company to go public. Then we ventured into yarn, and we took yarn all across the world. Today, we have more than 65 countries where we have marketed our yarn. We then got into cotton fiber, and that I personally got into it in 2000 when the BT revolution started, and suddenly India became a net exporter of cotton. And those were great days. And I remember selling to the largest spinner of the world, WBHA in China, 10,000 ton. That's 50, 60,000 bales for those who understand. Not once, twice in a season. And we sold cotton
Wow.
all across the world. You name the country anywhere where, and I introduced Indian cotton to a lot of international spinning mills. I remember sitting on the with the on in their conference room and convincing their technical people that why they should use Indian cotton. So I learned Indian cotton right from and you were talking of people who taught. There were two people, both of them are not there. There was Mr. Ramni, who was from Lakshmi Mills, who was also a consultant, who taught me a lot about cotton. He was a buyer also. And the way he understood cotton, I learned a lot from him. And there was our local cotton agent called Mr. Mittal, again, no more. These two people taught me, and I understood cotton right from the brass tacks, from bottom up. TT, apart from yarn, cotton, of course, our bread and butter. We shifted our focus from being a innerwear company, getting more into yarn and cotton in a big way. But then later on, with those big 2008, 9, 11, 12 bips, we decided again that we needed to have more stability. Yarn business, unfortunately, in India has been very incentive driven. First, you had tough which created a lot of capacity, which didn't work on fundamentals, demand supply. Then when they phased out, we in fact were part of phasing out and insisting to the government that we have too much of spinning capacity. But then the state governments got into the race. Gujarat, Maharashtra. We also went to Gujarat. I remember at the time I was just paying a 0.5% interest rate. The balance was all paid by the Gujarat government or the central government. So that's the extent of incentives. And we were amongst the first to put up a state-of-the-art ginning mill in Gujarat and then a spinning mill. And of course, now we all know Gujarat is full of spinning mills. Most people who have come from the ginning community. So then again, we have now wrapped up and reduced our exposure to spinning and yarn and gone back home. And now we've started our casual wear 3-4 years back. We are strengthening our brand back. So it's been a journey of going backward and then coming forward. But the whole thing is that, and today now we have realized over the last 1.5-2 years that India is no more going to be a cotton story. The blends are going to be very important. Polyester is going to be man-made fibers. India was very delayed in adopting it for a variety of government policies and reasons, while the world adopted it much. And that's why probably our growth also got stunted overall. We still are, for last 10 years, we've been exporting at the same level. We saw 1 year post-COVID where we went to 40 billion plus, again we are back to $34 billion. So overall, we have not been able to really unshackle ourselves. Since I got into this industry, I've always heard, in those conferences, अब इंडिया का टाइम आ गया है, जैसे वो एक कहानी थी ना, अब शेर आ रहा है, तो इंडिया का टाइम आ रहा है, तो बोला इंडिया नहीं, अभी चाइना ले गया ये पोस्ट कोटा फेज आउट, फिर बोला अब इंडिया का टाइम है, फिर देखा अचानक बांग्लादेश आ गया, अरे बांग्लादेश में कुछ एडवांटेज था बांग्लादेश से, फिर हमने देखा अब कौन, नाउ देयर इज नो वन बट इंडिया, इतने में वियतनाम आ गए. And even countries like Myanmar, I met the Myanmar Commerce Minister recently, and they're doing $6 billion of garments from Myanmar where they have no fabric at all. They say everything comes from outside, and India is still at $18 billion, and we've been there for a long time, 18 billion to $20 billion. So koi na koi aata gaya. I think so now we are in a position, labor is now will lose its relevance as a competitive advantage. And it's now or never, I think so, for India. And I think so the government also realizes it. Man-made fiber, a lot of unshackling has happened in the last 4-5. First time historically, an anti-dumping was removed in a budget 4-5 years back for polyester. It just never happened. It was always done through various different body, but it was done. So the government is realizing PLI has come all around man-made fiber. So I think so we have shifted. We have started an office in Surat. We are focusing on Ludhiana, and a shift. We were 100% cotton dominant company, and now though we are vertically, we are into yarn, fabric, garments, but all knits, but not cotton only. Now we are blends. We're doing everything: modal, micro modal, PC, 100% polyester, everything. So we are an integrated company. We are spread all across the country. We have a base in Calcutta, down south in Tirupur, north NCR, UP, Ludhiana, and in Gujarat. So I think so that also helps me personally. It gives me a lot of idea, and I have been blessed to have headed a lot of national organizations. I have been the chairman of NITRA, North India Textile Research Association, personally. I've chaired Confederation of Indian Textile Industry, CITI, which is the largest and the most representative body which the government of India looks to for any decisions. I have also chaired Textile Sector Council, which is the apex sector council appointed by the government of India for textiles. I've also been on the board of NSDC, National Skill Development, and been there for a year under none other than AM Nayak ji, who's the L&T Emeritus Chairman. So we've learned a lot. I've also been the chairperson of regional association like NITMA, North India Textile Mills Association, practically in all committees, South, North, West, East. Just now I'm heading the North India region of CMI, which is the Garment Association. Earlier days, I was more on the fabric and yarn side, now coming back to garment. I'm also the chairman of the Indian Chamber of Commerce National Textile Committee. and been vice president, WBHA. Malab, the list is too long and confusing. But you could say broadly, I've got flavors of all the regions, got flavors of all the segment, worked both at the central level with the central level ministers, a lot of time spent with Madam Smriti, ma'am, when she was the textile minister. It was almost overlapped with my tenure as chairing, partly with Piyush Ji Goyal, and with a lot of states, Assam, West Bengal, Gujarat, UP, Orissa. In different measures, I've been involved, in the local policy making, etc. So pretty nice, pretty interesting, pretty enriching.
That seems like a very enriching journey, sir. I'm sure, I mean, you've come a long way from then. And we will want to cover some of these things that you've mentioned, whether it's, cotton and man-made and more about ET further in the segment. But, knowing your background, double gold medalist, IIM Ahmedabad 93, few years with ICICI Securities. And during that time, and even today, it's a pretty large company with a very good penetration. And then you joined the family business. So just candidly, I want to, just check with you. Was it something that you really wanted to do since always, or was it something how, most Indian family businesses operate where you're expected to join the family business?
No, no, I had no compulsion to join my family business. It wasn't it wasn't exactly just family, it was part in extended family. But I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I always wanted to get into business. And MBA meant for me master in business administration. The dream was to get into business. I had no idea that most people take a job, and morely engineers come in rather than commerce people, because I thought business means commerce and so on. And otherwise, probably I would have also tried to go to IIT and then go to IIM. But I never knew. I thought business, commerce, management all syncs well. So somewhere it was there, and when I got an opportunity before I joined TT actually full fledged in 2002. I was there on the board and looking at a macro level things. For 4 years, I ran my own stock broking firm from 98 to 2002. And then I sold that off because I realized you needed to focus somewhere. So because of that focus requirement, I then fully shifted on to TT in 2002 actually.
Oh, that's great to know, sir. Thank you so much for sharing. And with that, we'd like to focus slightly on TT Limited. So as you mentioned, the company is into the entire value chain of textiles, right? It would be great if you can help us understand the entire journey. So how did the company start? What did it venture into, and then how did it expand further to different
We
uh,
started
segments of textiles?
TT started with men's innerwear, as I mentioned earlier. Then we moved into knitted fabric. Then in early 90s, we moved into yarn as a backward integration. But later on, we discovered we didn't need that quality of yarn for our innerwear range. And so we started exporting yarn. We became a EOU and we went all across the world. And also knitted fabric. Then we got more backward into cotton, taking advantage of the BT revolution. But then we exited cotton also about 4 5 years when it became extraordinarily competitive and government policies were disrupting your export commitments. And commitment in TT is very, very important. Something which we lose sleep if we're not able to meet our commitment for any reason, even if it's not within our control. So that's how we never wanted to be in somewhere where, we have to say sorry, we said yes, but now I'm sorry about it. And the volatility, the beta factor went up. So then we went back. We went into ladies and kids innerwear, and then just before COVID, we went into casual wear. That's knits, casual garments, and the COVID boom fortified our position there because those were the days when everyone wanted casual wear. So that accelerated the whole thing. Though TT is still known as a men's innerwear brand, but we are all across and we are doing different things with different people. If you go online, you find a range of 500, 600, items, not SKUs there, in all different socks, lingerie, ladies, kids, and then again the men's entire range, casual wear, whether it's t-shirts, loungers, tracksuits, winter wear. But 95% is all knits. Woven is something we do in a very, very small way. Excepting for yarn, weaving yarn, we don't do much in the woven side.
And I believe you have your own e-commerce as well, right?
Yes, yes, I think so. Now e-commerce, I don't think so. It's a separate segment. It's just another distribution channel. Like I have a
Nice.
retail channel. I work with the organized retail chain, so I also sell online. I think so. I don't consider it as a separate segment. It's an integral part of any business nowadays.
So with all the segments that the TT and his journey have been through, at present, what are like the top two or top three segments, in terms of contribution to the business?
Yarn still remains big, but we are slowly the percentage shift is going towards innerwear and casual wear, and we
Okay.
hope to grow that more and more in the coming days. We've gone through some restructuring of IBM of something, reducing something, increasing. So I think so. It will take another 6 months for us to finish this post-COVID restructuring that we have. But going forward, we're going to be more innerwear and casual wear company.
Okay. So, sir, I wanted to ask you one thing, considering, that you've been fairly present in the entire value chain of textiles. In my limited knowledge, back in the days during maybe 70s or 80s, India had too many composite units. I have heard that there was a time when Birla Century was like the largest composite unit in Asia, right? But today, I think the number has dropped significantly. So, what is your take on like a composite unit to a company like TT Limited, which is fairly present amongst the entire value chain, but not having a composite setup as such? So, what are the challenges or advantages of these two way of operation?
Well, though of course, though I was also not present in the industry in those days. But when I came in, those companies were on the way out. Either they were capturing the real estate, and unfortunately, after that, whoever grew too big in India in textiles actually faltered. Too big and too fast faltered. I don't want to name people, but there were some very big names who grew, but they faltered, and then they were taken over in bits and pieces. I always say that was the China way of growing, where you blindly keep expanding capacity, which somehow doesn't work in India in textiles per se, if you look at from economic sense of view, because it's a very matured industry, you know. So you're not going to generate so much of cash accruals. You're not going to have those big bonuses coming out, especially if you're large, because large then you need to work on economies of scale and narrower margins. You can't. You're not a boutique shop where you can have find some niche and do it. So what I think so, there was a time when they disintegrated because of competitive lack of competitiveness. They became too big. They became like an elephant. Too much of overheads, and then government policies never supported. The leakages in the system, which India has always been famous for, were much easier done, and that's how they hit the composite units. But I think so now, every segment has become so big. In those days, you had licensing. You could not grow because your market was just India. You could grow as much as India was growing. But now you're in the global market. So having composite may be too much of a drain. Getting into all the segments in an equal proportion. You may need to become just too big. So today you can focus. If you're just into garmenting, you can be still huge. If you're just into yarn, you can be still huge. Maybe you get into yarn and fabric. Maybe you get into fabric and garments, but getting into the whole entire chain composite may today not be possible unless excepting for a few large groups. But there also I'm seeing, of course, there are some large groups like KPR who have got in completely, but most have faltered if they got into somewhere in garments. They faltered because garments is a different ball game altogether. Some of the garment guys who went backward faltered because yarn is a different ball game altogether. So I think so. You don't really need to in today's context to be entirely integrated from back to forth in one place, one location. You can be big definitely, but big in certain segments.
Okay. And sir, in the earlier segment, while describing TT, you briefly spoke about then a shift from cotton to man-made materials. Right? India historically has always been a cotton-dominated society when it comes to textiles. But we can see that of lately there have been a lot of conversations regarding if you look at the global pattern or even China for that matter, their main contribution is from the man-made segment, especially polyester. And the recent PLI scheme by Textile Ministry in India also was, fully focused on the man-made or polyester segment. So what is your take on this? Where do you see the next 5 years is going to look like? Of course, off lately we've seen with the increase in price, especially with yarn and other products and textiles, a lot of people or a lot of companies in India, especially the smaller ones who are completely cotton based, right? They've been forced to look at blends like PC because cotton has become kind of unviable when it comes to price segment, especially at a MRP or at a counter level. So, what is your take with respect to the next 5 years?
I think so. 21, 22, the high cotton prices were the trigger. You always have to have a trigger. Otherwise we all are in our comfort zones. It was apparent and imminent that we had to move into MMF in a big way. When I was city chairman, I remember with meetings in NITI, Textile Ministry. It was all despite being a cotton man, I was always talking about MMF. Whether it was the GST issues, because it was very imminent, there was no choice. We had to, get big there. Because cotton, obviously, the fiber itself controls how much you can grow. You can't be bigger. And in the last decade, India has lost the plot when it comes to cotton. People, China is 1,500, 2,000 kgs a hectare productivity. We are still at 450, 500. In fact, we are now regressing. A decade where we have not been able to move up in an agri crop, despite all technology, despite everything. I think so. It says that it's like bye-bye for cotton, and I still don't see any. We need now the small incremental changes won't help us. We need radical step up, like we have the BT thing. So I don't know if that's going to come, what's there in the government's mind, and whether they're going to push it through. Otherwise, we have no choice that we are going to slowly move to becoming more a man-made country, because that's where all the growth is going to come. We are now for last 1.5, 2 years. I've never seen India's cotton being so much out of range from international. We've been on the negative side, when we always used to be on the positive side. So we have no choice to move. Textile consumers somehow are not ready to pay anything more. I don't mean those 3, 4, 5% people at the top end. Anywhere in the world, no one is ready to pay more. If you see dollar term prices, they're almost constant. It shows in US over 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, no one has paid more. I think so. That's a real fact. So we'll have to find cheaper options. We are finding them, and that comes from man-made fiber. It's not going to come from cotton because cotton needs land, land needs water. Both are premiums, so they're not going to be really finding. You will probably come with synthetic cotton. Going ahead, people are already trying to come as close to cotton. A lot of research is happening. Even Reliance in India is doing a lot of research on that. I've had a lot of interaction with the research team. How can they give that cotton feel? How can they give that cotton property? I'm sure sometime it's going to be. So we have to be. It's a foreground. We are going to grow with blends or maybe 100%.
So let's say if you were to start a new textile company or someone else from your network was to start a new textile company, right? Whether it's spinning or weaving or knitting, would your advice be strictly polyester or cotton or mix? How would you approach a new
Blends
business?
in India, blends because we're a tropical country. So maybe blends, but definitely not 100% cotton. You could have the flexibility to take advantage, probably where you have a good year, but you cannot only rely on 100%.
Okay.
Unless you're in a very niche segment export, you have a particular buyer, then that's a different thing.
Sure. And sir, I've always kind of observed that every large company is built on a very strong value structure or a very strong value system, right? Now, TT is a big company, global presence, across the value chain. What is your value system? Like, what is the value or the mission or the vision that drives TT Limited as a company, all of its workforce, including the management and the employees?
As I said, just expanding, fair dealing, honesty, transparency, relationship. I think so. The business environment will keep changing. You keep changing your technology. You keep changing your fibers. You keep changing your strategy, your reach, your markets will keep changing. Textile markets also don't stay consistent. I think so. Those are things you will keep change, and that you have to keep doing as you evolve over time. I think so. A strong value, as you rightly said, it's a value system that gives you only stability in long term, because you can't find customers every day. So if you're going to make a quick buck, either on the buyer side or on the vendor side, vendors are as important. It's unfortunate for some companies who feel buyers give them profits. I think so today more than buyers is the vendors who decide how much profit you make. Having good vendors, consistent vendors. So it all builds when you build a relationship, people trust you, value that relationship. And when times are difficult, those relationships are like today, I know the sort of relationship I have with my vendors. If I'm stuck on anywhere in the supply chain, if I get in and make a call, I'm 100% sure, I can unshackle a lot of lead time and get it going much faster. That's the sort of relationship we develop over time. We don't transact with each other, but we build a relationship.
So, sir, honesty is something you mentioned a couple of times, and I can understand that it's very, very important. It's very core to who you are. Uh, Help me understand one thing. So, when you're building such a large company, you have a massive workforce. Integrity, honesty, these are certain challenges that are usually, something that everyone kind of struggles with in finding or building a team which is very honest, which, where the integrity is very high. How do you approach that? Is it easy to find team members or potential team members who are very honest, high level of integrity, or is that something you have to work around with?
There are always good people, there are always bad people, and the people are normally good, they become bad. The environment takes them bad. You know, the first wrong move made is not doesn't come from inside, it comes from the external environment. I think so that's part and parcel of life. It's something we cannot change. But I think so with better salaries, better living style, as they say, corruption is reducing at the lower levels, because of automation, digitalization. I think so that will also happen. If my person is getting a better salary, better medical facility, he's not going to go behind those small pennies, and uh, do something which he does not feel comfortable with. And then I think so it's very important. This all comes from the top. If I'm paying 100% GST, I'm paying all my taxes. I don't take out a truck or even a carton or even a sample for myself without getting it built. So that culture builds up. Like if I start saying, give me samples, take this out, don't record it, then obviously the employees are going to multiply that. They'll say, yeah, it's okay, it works in this company. I think so. Since I've always maintained, and I can proudly say, I've never sold anything without the bill in my entire career.
I think so. That's a very strong point, lead by an
And
example.
I know because of that I've made lesser profits. But like I remember when demonetization happened, my wife said we have nothing to worry about. So that was one point she was happy, that all this, is paying off and we have nothing to worry about, or whether the 2000 notes are coming. People are running helter skelter, wondering. I think it's okay, it's happening, whatever is happening, is happening. That's fair enough.
Very strong point, sir, because it's very important for the team to see that the management is very ethical. There's no
I think
cutting
it all
corners and
comes from the
everyone
top.
drives value.
Whether it's a family, whether it's a company, the value system comes from the top. We learn from what we see.
Very, very good point, sir. Thank you so much for sharing that. And since TT has a wide international presence across multiple categories, on the other hand, we know most Indian companies dream to go international, but a lot of them are actually not able to activate the international market, the export or the import part of the business. In your opinion, what is the right way to build, an international business? What are some of the key elements that an international buyer or supplier would look at when they're looking at, an Indian company with respect to either sales or sourcing?
First of all, building international markets, export markets, you need patience. It doesn't happen overnight. It's like building, brick by brick, you're going to build it up. But international buyers look for professionalism, good communication, transparency, honesty again. Because India unfortunately has that image. There's no value for commitment. Of course, there are many companies who are known and people swear by them as much as any other global company anyway. But I'm talking of the overall image in the MSME segment. When expose doesn't happen that way. वो चलता है से नहीं होगा. अगर आपसे नहीं होता है तो मना कर दीजिए, आई कैन नॉट डू इट. ये मत बोलिए कि भाई अरे चलो देखेगा देखा जाएगा, because that one wrong move and then he doesn't talk to you for years. International guys are much more sensitive. You can't go and say sorry and start business. And it's not that buyer only wants a claim from you. Buyer wants a headache-free business from you. And especially today, no one has time, for getting into claims and sending you samples. This is wrong, that's wrong. Everything has to work seamlessly. So if a person, whether you're big or small, you can build that culture. And again, it has to come from the top, because we are spoiled by the way India works. But in export, it can be very, very costly. You can have penalties, you can have air shipment charges. You need to be really, really careful what you come from. Otherwise, you're going to be in and out very fast. And of course, go out, invest time, invest money, go to exhibitions, be part of buyer seller meet, be part of the export promotion councils, go out, meet. And business normally will happen mostly through intermediaries, through agents, because they have access, daily access. Many of us try to build direct contacts, but it's not easy unless it's one big buyer, probably a retail chain of stores or something where you're building one relationship. But if you are doing business in bits and pieces across the world, you need to build good relationship with agents who act as your representative to the buyer.
So, sir, if you were to summarize this for someone looking to start international business, either with respect to do's and don'ts or with respect to action steps number 1, 2, 3, 4, how would that be? Of course, you've kind of briefly answered everything, but if you were to summarize
I
it,
think so.
how?
You pick up your products, see which are the main markets for that. Do an analysis, deep analysis of HS code, and see that these HS codes are going to which country. And then earmark, okay, these are the 6 countries I am going to focus. Attend their exhibitions, because that's the best place of meeting people. Building relationships with buyers, agents, etc. And nowadays, a lot of data is digitally available. Port data is available. You can write to embassies. You can write to trade commissions. You can write to local trade associations. I'm not saying you're going to get a great reply or revert from them, but you need to keep trying, and finding those windows. You're not going to get the doors. You're only going to get small window opportunities, so which you need to squeeze in. And once you build in a reputation, and then of course things flow in a much easier way, because you can always say, look, I'm already in your country, I have so many reference points. So you need to build those reference points. You need to be aggressive on your pricing. Don't expect too much of money to come initially, but get a toehold, get a foothold slowly, barge in. So I think so if you do this sort of 360-degree exercise, I'm surely there's no reason why you should not be able to get into any market. Of course, assuming whatever I said earlier, you do all those things, the basics. The hygiene factors
This
cannot.
is this is great, sir. I'm hoping this is going to be super helpful for a lot of companies. So I wanted to ask you about quality now, but before I ask you about quality, let's discuss, where we first met. Recently had a pleasure of meeting you, at a great place, European Parliament. Uh, I was completely in awe, to be honest, because of two main reasons. Number one, I instantly felt that you're very knowledgeable, and number two, yet the clarity of thought you have, which is a great, character to have. So, wanted you to share your experience, what was that about, what are your key takeaways from that session?
Of course, European Parliament was a great experience and a big honor for you and me and whoever else was there. I think so. One big takeaway was that people consider India to be a very important partner. And one of the European parliamentarians said that if we had to choose a partner among the big growing nations, I think so India would be our first choice. I think so. That shows the trust people have in India as a country, in terms of the current policy making, the sort of outreach that we have developed. I think that's a very important takeaway. And secondly, is that now India is treated at par with anyone. You're as good or as bad as anyone. It's no more than India. अच्छा देखते हैं. So now that India is in a different way, the tone is different. I think so. The respect is different. No one underestimates an Indian or feels that Just because he's an Indian, he's a brown skin, his knowledge levels, his understanding is going to be one notch lower. That's gone to that. And when you see that happening in the apex body of a continent, I think so that tells you much more. And it's not only in the European Parliament, I've been hearing all around, and I'm sure this EU FTA, of course, it's going to take time. But because I also met some UK people also in the Parliament that time, who are instrumental. I think so. UK is going to be the game changer, and once European Union FTA happen, I think so. Indian textile industry is going to be on a different orbit, on a different plane altogether, and we're going to be running helter skelter to create capacities. And all this doom and gloom that we are seeing now because of poor global demand, domestic demand over the last one and a half years, you're going to find that actually we have no capacity, and we actually have no capacity, no scale. A bit of pick up in demand globally, I'm going to find that we all are going to be, finding it very difficult to manufacture. We really need to build in our scaled manufacturing facilities with state-of-the-art automation, wherever you can use AI, because India may be a country of 140 crore plus people, where we all know it's still difficult to find people. At the lower level, there's so much of disguised unemployment that is an advantage when you look in wages. But if we adjust it for productivity, it's not as big as an advantage as it should be in India. And that's been one prime reason where in the labor intensive industry, we're not being able to grow the way we should have grown. We've actually grown where we needed the mine raw material rather than the labor raw material in the last couple of decades. So I think so. Of course, that speaks volume about Indians and India, but also it's a matter of concern that we probably need to use more tools to have artificial enhancement of productivity and efficiency.
I remember in that panel, when everyone had their pointers, and one thing that you mentioned, which kind of stuck to me, when you were speaking to the president of Eurotex, and you said that, European textile companies have advantages like design innovation, machinery, and on the other hand, Indian manufacturers have the advantage of, manufacturing cost advantages, labor power, all of that. And together, that's a great synergy, which is not just great for EU and India to kind of work together, but also kind of collaborate and achieve a larger global market share in textiles. I think that's a very, very strong point.
Yes, I think so. India can be a natural ally to Europe's strengths. Europe cannot tie up with China, because they will overrun them. India still lacks a lot of things that Europe has. When it comes to technology, we hardly have anything called as technology in textiles in India. Our design levels are still very, very low. So technical textiles, we are way behind. So there are things where Europe is strong. I think so. We would sort of complement each other. They don't have much
Very
of
complementary skill sets.
So we can complement each other well to create a block in the global supply chain. I'm not talking of India-Europe business. I think so. European companies, Indian companies working together and swapping each other's strengths would create new maybe JVs, maybe 100% subsidiaries, which could become very serious players in the global supply chain. And I think so. Europe does understand that, but the complexities are much larger. But it's very important. European companies push hard, Indian companies push hard to create a zero duty give and take immediately as soon as the FTA gets onboarded, maybe in another 1.5 to 2 years.
And of lately, there have been a lot of conversations regarding, for textiles, especially FTAs with UK, with Europe, with a few other countries. So looks like it's a great going for now.
I must compliment our Honorable Commerce Minister, Piyush Goyalji. I think so. After a long time, we have found someone who really has, who doesn't just, who's walking his talk, he's really pushing hard. UAE happened, Australia happened, UK probably would have happened earlier, but unfortunately, the political changeover that's happening there. He's pushing EU. I now remember so many textile ministry are calling so many Zoom meeting and asking industry, but tell us today. We don't have time. You have to answer back by tomorrow. It wasn't okay. You get back now. They're telling us with deadlines please answer reply Canada. I think so. We have realized the importance of FTAs and with the right type of nations. Earlier, we were doing the FTAs where we both had similar skills and strengths. So that led to not having as much advantage as we should have out of the FTA. And now we are looking west, on the west side. I think so. I think so. That makes perfect sense.
Nice. So one thing I've always observed, and with you also, whenever people talk about, our Commerce Minister, our Textile Minister Piyush Goyal, suddenly there's a very different smile and a very different energy that comes out. And when you started speaking, I could see that smile. So this clearly shows that India is on the right
No,
track now when it comes
definitely.
to textiles.
I think so. We should give credit wherever it's due. We unfortunately have got in such a mindset of always complaining, complaining, complaining. I always, whenever I speak a lot in court, I said, I don't want to talk about government policies unless we are talking to the government. Why tell people what's wrong in the policies? You create more negativism. And when there's so much of positivity and nothing is anyway going to be perfect. And perfect anyway is a relative term and it differs from, it has different perspectives. So let's see what's positive happening. Of course, there'll always be things which we feel should be done. And I'm sure we will do them. It's not as easy as it sounds because I have worked very closely with the government and I have had a lot of conversations knowing that things which look apparently right cannot be done for a variety of reasons. There are various constraints there. India is a big country. But definitely there is a lot of positive thrust sense of it. First time, as I said, the anti-dumping going, creating a PLI just for man-made, recognizing the fact. Others were too attached to this. Having meetings of how to create, improve, correct the inverted duty structure in GST. All these FTAs. I just read Honorable Minister flew down to UK. Just to give that extra push. I think so. It's very clear that the intent is backed by action. Of course, we have a lot of ups and downs. As I said, Texas still has not seen any, uptrend as such. We are only range bound for a decade or so. But I think so. Probably we are stabilizing and we'll break out very soon.
Yeah, very well said, sir. And also, off lately, there has been a lot of conversation regarding QCO, right? For our, listeners, what is QCO? If you could quickly describe it, and what is going to be its impact, at least in your opinion?
QCA is quality control order. It's basically to ensure whatever comes in the country is of a certain quality. I'm not so much in favor of it for the simple reason the QCO has not come across the value chain. It's only come at the raw material stage. So this has become like a non-tariff barrier. You're not going to allow fiber and yarn to come in with, without taking a BSI. So what you're saying is allow value added to come without quality and let the raw materials have a quality monitoring system. So if you want to have a monitoring system, have it across the chain. I always say, if you want to have anti-dumping, you have to have it across the. You can't just have anti-dumping on fiber and say let yarn fabric come from wherever it wants to come. Then you are ensuring that the country never gets into value addition. And this is what's happening now. With this QCO, the raw materials will get more difficult. You'll step up the price points, availability in the country. And what will happen? People will dump fabric, they will dump garments. We have a lot of duty-free countries. Garments are coming from Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. Fabric will come from Vietnam, etc. They'll all start coming in, and China, despite having duties, still finding it competitive to dump fabric here. So I think so. If you quality has to be across the value chain, cannot be in bits and pieces. And the larger raw material suppliers are normally much bigger and more regulated. So and for raw material, it's a B2B deal. In a B2B deal, I don't need the government to guide me or what I want to buy. A B2B buyer is always intelligent enough to understand what quality he wants to buy. You need regulations, you need certifications when it's a B2C because a consumer is not able to understand quality and he can be cheated. But unfortunately, we're doing the reverse. We're saying, look, you don't know, I don't know what fiber I should buy. I don't know what yarn should I buy. So the government is going to decide. No one has ever complained over years. Probably it's a ploy to stop China from sending you raw materials, maybe, but we typically always have non-tariff barriers. So maybe it's also partly that, because China has a lot of producers, a lot of sub-quality stuff done. But then why not on fabric? Why not on garments? And the idea and intent is not bad, but then why only on a portion? Why not on a portion? The portion which needs it less is getting more regulated. The portion which needs more regulation, not.
Sure. So basically, your recommendation is that if it is applied, it should be applied across the value chain, not just
And it should
for.
always start from the B2C consumer rather than from the B2B.
So reverse, start with apparels, then fabrics, then yarn, and go that way.
Yeah, absolutely. So the value-added industry grows in the country.
Makes sense, sir. And I always talk about quality because whenever we interact with either an international buyer or a brand, one of the concern that we see is that the probably one of the top reasons why they're limiting their trade with India or not doing any transaction in India is because of the lack of trust on quality and maybe more importantly, consistency of quality. Now, I know you take quality very seriously. For you, it's a no-brainer. It goes without saying. But just for our listeners, what is your importance to quality? How do you adhere quality at TT?
There's nothing as good quality or bad quality. It is always depends on expectations. It's a relative term. What is good for you may be bad for me, and what's bad
It's
for me
very
may be good.
subjective.
So what I said earlier, again, whatever you're giving, be transparent, be consistent. Consistency is what is lacking. Whether there are enough buyers at all quality points. There's no dearth of buyers. You'll get different types of profiles of buyers. But making a promise which you cannot do, or you do it one time and then you go down. Promise what you can consistently deliver, what your systems and processes and people are able to deliver. That's all. I think so. That's what's more important. There's nothing as this word quality itself. I never understand because this is a very it's too generic a term.
But when you have an order, either a domestic or international order, of course, there are certain quality parameters that are discussed or performance parameters that are discussed, right?
We should match that. Whatever we discuss, whatever the tech pack tells us, whatever we agree to, we should maintain. So that's consistency.
So as a manufacturing entity, of course, I understand that, a lot of companies, when it comes to the promoter or management level, there is a very clear intention that they want to fulfill what was promised or assured. But one of the challenges that manufacturing is not done by the management, right? So when you have laborers, when you have a, large team working, large infrastructure, so man, material, process, a lot of other, factors that kind of influence the final quality deliverable. How do you as a manufacturer assure or ensure that the final output is what is something that you promise someone?
देखिए, I'll say this in Hindi. Management, the last buck stops at the management. The management cannot end up giving excuses कि मेरा लेबर ऐसा ही है, मेरा स्टाफ ऐसा ही है, मेरा मशीन ऐसा है. This doesn't work, sir. You know what your machines are, you know what your people are. So why did you agree to something? If you've agreed, then either you stand there and deliver, otherwise you don't agree. क्या आपको ओवरनाइट कुछ चेंज हो जाएगा, कुछ कमाल हो जाएगा? You're giving X, you know what you're giving, so only promise X. In fact, promise X minus, so that you over deliver and then the customer develops trust in you. अब आप यूं ही प्रॉमिस करते हैं, इंडिया में कुछ भी बोल दो, हाँ कर देंगे. तो कैसे कर दोगे ये तो बताओ, किया है कभी? लोग हैं कोई करने वाले, चलो नहीं भी किया है तो कोई है जिसने जो और कहीं कहीं किया हो. कोई डू यू हैव दैट मशीन? हो सकती है आपकी मशीन होगी, but just machine doesn't deliver unless you put in the. Do you even know what is the raw material needed to produce the quality you promise? If you have never done it, most people don't even know कि चाहिए क्या, अंदर क्या डालूं कि वो बाहर आए. तो अंदर हम वही डालेंगे, एक्सपेक्ट करेंगे सब बढ़िया होगा, we'll give a lecture to our staff, but it doesn't help that, it doesn't work that.
Someone I really admire in the industry, he recently said a statement. He said, performance drops to the level of your tolerance.
Yes, absolutely. It's always at the lower. It's always at the lower level of the tolerance.
Right, sir. Sure, makes sense. And one thing I want to, not just for our listeners, but also something I want to learn from you. When you have so many businesses, when you travel all over, you have, whether it's verticals of the business, whether it's geographies that you're present in, how do you manage? Like, what is your management mantra with respect to, managing so much on your plate?
One thing, I am a born multitasker, but obviously everyone is. On the move, I'm normally always doing two things, three things. So I am able to manage more. Like I never sleep. Even when I was in Europe with you, at the end of the day, I finished all my WhatsApp. I finished all my emails before going to sleep. So I maintain that. It may take me another 15 minutes, another 30 minutes. Even if I was sitting in the parliament, I was answering WhatsApp. When I was sitting and I had nothing to do,
Yeah, I was
I was
sitting
just
next to you and
soaking
I
because
could
most of
always see that you were on the phone. I remember we were exchanging
the,
messages late night till 10,
I
11
know
p.m.
someone may say that that's not the right thing to do. Why are you doing that? You should be more focused. But then you can't do so many things in life. So that's your trade-off. My trade-off is as long as I can deliver. And if my delivery is wrong, if I'm answering wrong, if I spoke like for the European Parliament, I didn't prepare a 6-page note and come. I wrote my points while sitting and waiting for our panel discussion to happen. It was just a one-pager with some scribbled notes. I think so that was enough. Because number one, in a panel discussion, you don't need a 6-page, then you don't know what to speak. What matters is driving home important. No one has the time to listen to people who ramble. It may look great, but no one is actually listening to you. So you need to be very focused. You need to be very pinpointed. And for that person who knows his subject, he doesn't need to really write. You just need a few pointers, and then you speak based on the situation. So that's the way I do it. I answer everyone, and I've told all my staff, if I don't reply in 24 hours, from a peon to the manager, anyone can remind you, because if I don't in our company, excuses are not welcome. No one can say that I did not do this because I did not get your reward. It's his responsibility to come back to me if I don't reply. If I miss a mail or if I miss a WhatsApp, if he needs that, he has to come. So I think so. You maintain that, of course. Then you maintain good reporting systems. One report can tell you things that may take 4 hours to find out. You need good people who are disciplined in their approach. At least the normal process they follow properly. They don't deviate. I know it's still a challenge getting those type of people. I won't say it's easy because textile industry cannot bear the salary of those. I cannot have an IIM. When I was in 2008-9, I was there in IIM Ahmedabad for my reunion, and that was a bad year. So otherwise an IMA person never looks and talks to anyone for a job. But they came to the seniors and said, "Can you help us?" I made a statement. I still remember. I said, "Even if you come free of cost, I'm not going to hire you." Because I cannot afford him in long term. He's going to go away as soon as he gets a job. So you need to again map based on your requirement. You can't, if you take someone who's overskilled, obviously he's going to leave you, or you're going to end up paying him so much which you cannot afford. So get the right people. A Hindi speaking person could be good enough. I have no fancy to get English speaking people because the salary is just double as soon as they know how to speak English. अगर उसको डेटा एंट्री करना है तो मुझे क्या करना है? 15,000 का आदमी से होता है तो 30,000 का क्या करना है? I don't want to get a certificate. Look, that guy speaks, communicates well. Our language communication is equally good because that was more people understand. All my domestic people, my staff, they understand Hindi. By speaking English, just because my English is good doesn't mean that they will understand what I say. They won't. They will not say. But when I write something, in WhatsApp में भी हम लिखते हैं, हम हिंदी भाषा में लिखते हैं in English, and many people write in Hindi only. They can't even write in English. So that's fair enough. Finally, what matters is delivery.
So I think what's commendable, something I've observed is you have your cost factors very much in control. जैसे आपने IIM वाली भी जो बात कही, you very well understand your cost
Absolutely.
factors and like to keep them in check.
In textile, you cannot survive. In textile, you cannot be big and survive if your cost parameters are not fully in control. That's something very, very important, more important than the buyers.
And probably that's why earlier you mentioned कि sales से पैसा नहीं निकलेगा, आप sourcing से पैसा निकालो.
बिल्कुल 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 बहुत बड़ा फर्क है, बहुत बड़ा फर्क.
So with that, sir, I have a final question for you. What would you say, have been the top learnings from being a part of a textiles business? So if you were to, advise someone who's starting a new textile business, what would be your top 1, 2, 3 recommendations or advice, do's and don'ts for them?
in textile, if you want to be big, you need volumes, you need scale, because margins are never going to be, earth shattering. It's a matured industry, but obviously it's such a large market, so it's relatively easy to find buyers, sellers. The risk factor is less. The risk factor on being able to run your factory is less. Of course, margins are always under risk, and we should look for more. We should go more on value added. We should go more on the branding side, because then, of course, you can exponentially increase your margins. Not by a normal, just setting a good machine and just running it day in and day out. And because an innovation also, I feel, is not a consistent long-term policy to make money, because whether you'll be able to repeatedly innovate, because things, one innovation's bankability is very limited. It's not like एक innovation product निकाल लिया 10 साल तक उसको बेचूंगा और पैसा कमाऊं. It doesn't happen. Either too many people coming to that too fast, or that something new comes up. So either way, you're not able to, the innovations currency is very limited. So you need to get more into value added, where inherently margins are better. Get more into branding, and branding again is not easy. Just spending money never gives you branding. This is all these startups who are dumping money, burning money. Most of them are creating brands. They're just driving sales. So I think so. You need to see where you can really deliver value consistently and cover a gap where you're meaningful. Of course, you can keep burning money for the short term, but you can do many things short term. But while doing all this in the short term, you need to be ensuring that your medium term, I would say long term, we all are dead. Your medium term base, your strength is developed. So even if you're not doing well today, you have the base, like, and you get money or you get people, and you can suddenly use that base to exponentially grow. So at least that should be in place. Complicated. It's not an easy industry. Definitely, I know it may not look nice coming from my mouth, but if you want to be there, then these are some mantras for you.
So thank you so much, sir, for everything. You've been very kind in terms of sharing your wisdom with us, and we hope that we are able to inspire a lot of people in the industry with this segment. So thank you so much, sir.
No, my pleasure entirely. And even if I can make an iota of difference to anyone anywhere, it really would mean a lot to me. And
I know you mean that well.
And I must say, congratulate Yan Bazaar also for doing an extraordinary job, much more than my expectations in the yarn field. Compliments to you, and it's great to be conversing with a person who's raised funds on Shark Tank, which is today one of the most popular shows, not only among men and youth, but also among ladies also. So keep
thank
it going.
you so much for your kind words, sir. It means a lot coming from you. I honestly, personally, I don't think we've done anything so far. I think there's a lot to be done yet. But yeah, it means a lot coming from you.
Journey is as important as the destination. Those probably will never reach the destination.
The problem is, recently one of the podcasts I did, someone I really admire, he mentioned very nicely that we are all very unsatisfied souls. So no matter what we get, we're still unsatisfied. There's a much bigger battle to fight. There's a much bigger,
Absolutely. To be unsatisfied, to be hungry is good, as long as it's within a control thing. You don't get too greedy and go overboard, or cross the line. I think so, but that has to stay. And I always feel that
survival system is very important.
I have that energy, and I always feel it's not about business. There's so much around. If your business, you cannot take risks for a reason. There's so much around you in the environment that you can do. Add value to the industry, add value to the ecosystem, add value to the youth, and so much more that can be done.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Pratik. Thanks a lot.
Wish you well, and hope to see you again very soon.
Sure. I hope if people are able to digest what all I've given.
It's always lovely speaking to you, sir. Take care.
Okay, take care, Pratik. Take care. Have a nice weekend.
You too, sir.